today, our guest is a technology leader with over 10 years worth of experience across software development, user experience design, and the digital. Please help me welcome Kevin Yee. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Hi Earl, how you doing?
I'm doing good. So I'm glad that you're also doing fine as well.
No, I didn't
So,
say I didn't say if I was doing fine yet. I said how are you? No, I'm just kidding, man. No, I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. You know when you've known someone since what, 10 years ago, 13 years ago?
yes, yes.
And I wouldn't say it's awkward, but because you have such history and common friends and you know what I mean? Like you actually went to uni together. The dynamics a bit, I wouldn't say weird, but it's actually a bit lighthearted, which is good. But yeah, thanks for inviting me, man.
It's really a lighthearted one. So again, thank you very much for having us here in the show. So first things first, with your career across software development, is this a dream that you wish you wanted to take when you were still young?
No, not at all. It's actually the second one. My family were really music oriented. My mother played the guitar and my father was a singer, not a professional singer, but you know what I mean.
Mm,
Like he has a very, very good voice. And you know, when I was younger, I think when I was 7, 8, 10, something like that, I actually learned to play the keyboard and then the guitar. My mom taught me. So I've always wanted to be a musician. You know, this sounds a bit depressing, but when you're in the Philippines, you don't get a lot of opportunities, right? Like if you pursue your dream, for example, you don't get any support from the government if you don't have a job. You know what I
right.
mean? Like you can't really work in a cafe like you can here in Sydney or somewhere else. So my second choice, and I'm not saying it regretting it because it's amazing, is being in tech.
What fascinated you about tech that made you decide that, okay, this is the career path that you wanted to take?
It's actually a bit ridiculous as to why I got into tech. Because you know,
Okay, okay.
in high school, a friend of mine, we always played video games like Counter-Strike,
Mm-hmm.
Dota 2, and all that stuff. And I said to myself, because I, you know, again, always love video games. I said I wanted to go into an information technology route because I either want to build a video game
Mm.
or create a virus. You know, it was like 15 years ago. I'm pretty sure there was a guy who created I think it's called the I love you virus or something like that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I've heard about that and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but from a creative perspective, pretty impressive. So again, it sounds funny now, but that sort of dream led me to where I am today. Like I didn't hack anything, I didn't create any virus, but if you remember back in our last year in college,
Yes,
uh,
yes.
in our software engineering project, I
Yeah.
actually created and presented a video game. So
Hmm.
yeah, I made it happen. Yeah.
And I'm actually looking forward that you would be one who would be creating an original concept of a video game and coming from the Philippines.
No, Earl, I did try that, which is like you said, you know, it would be great to have this podcast as a natural flow. Now that you mention it, I actually tried that 10 years ago.
Okay.
And oh, is it 10 years now? No, I'm not that old yet. Maybe 7 years ago.
All right, all
And
right.
it's a mobile game. And I didn't release it because I didn't have enough funding and all that. But the name
Okay.
of the mobile game was called Penguins Can't Fly. That was the video.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. That's so
Yeah. It's quite funny, isn't it?
yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. What kind of concept is that?
No, it's
Anyway,
pretty good, but it's actually pretty cute. And it's pretty fun too. Because you know that it's actually obvious. Like penguins can't fly, but
right.
what happens is remember one of those endless runner game, like
Yeah.
Temple Run and
Yes,
Subway
yes.
Surfer. Yeah, so we tried to do something like that, and the main character is a penguin, and the penguin turns left and right and then jumps and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, when the penguin falls down, he can't fly. So penguins can't fly. He needs to stay in the platform. Anyway,
This is a really good throwback to the games we played then because I know the games right now are so different from 10 years ago.
yep,
Yeah.
agree. They're very
We have
advanced, especially with the internet. Anywhere in the world, you can play with your friends, right? You know, obviously,
right, right.
yeah, you'd meet new friends as well from different parts of the world. And you know, again, you must be the same. Like before we have more time to play games, and now it's just very difficult to find that time. But yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. So after you presented the video game back then in our software engineering subject, were you able to apply professionally as a game developer?
That's a very interesting question. So it actually ties into how I started my career as well. So after college, I'm pretty sure both of us applied at IBM.
Yes.
Remember that? And all our peers. And then we also applied all the tech companies in Cebu, basically. Again, there wasn't any gaming companies that were big in Cebu 10 years ago, or what is it, 13 years ago now?
Yeah.
So I got accepted in Coursera,
Hmm.
and a very close friend of mine, we decided to work somewhere else. So I actually got an offer from Coursera and I signed the offer and I backed out. And a lot of people in our industry knew about it.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say they criticized my action, but obviously, your convention is if you just graduated and you had the job, you take the job offer, right?
Right.
But in my case, I was so dedicated in game development. So I spoke to my friend and he said, if we work in this company, we can create a video game on the side.
Hmm.
So I went with him and we actually didn't create a video game at all. Like we didn't do it. However, after that, Earl, like my first job, I only lasted for 4 months.
Okay.
And then I started looking online, and that's when I actually gotten a video game job
Hmm.
for a year and a half. So long story short, it is very difficult. And even today, like I'm not very updated in our market
Hmm.
in the Philippines. It's a very niche market from a tech perspective, game
Hmm.
development.
How did you go about with your starting out in the video game industry? How was the experience then?
What was it now? I mean, how long is it now? Yeah, again, so 10 years, 12 years ago, we were the pioneer at the time in terms of video game development. And it was just people finding out how things work, how the game engines work, engines where you write code and then it will build your code and then produce the video game itself. So
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of resources at the time.
Hmm.
So the game developers in Cebu, in the Philippines, we were very challenged, to say the least. We were such in a challenging situation. That's why when I came here in Sydney to study my master's degree, I didn't get a video game developer job. But what happened is I got a job from Deloitte and I was a web developer. I had a great career, but on the side, because of my love of video game, I funded the games that I wanted to create. I still have some of them working on my phone, actually, just didn't get a chance to release them. It ties into, remember when I said I always wanted to be a musician and, make
Right,
money
right.
and love what I do? It's
Yeah.
just the reality, in the Philippines. But yeah, it's a bit sad, but life goes on, I think.
Sad realities, I would
Yeah.
say. You mentioned about you coming to Sydney and taking your master's degree. Take us to how you went into that decision in your life.
Yeah, we're really getting into the emotional stuff. I'm gonna try to pace myself, but basically what happened was I think we started working 2013, Earl,
Right.
and around 2014, my father had a stroke. All
Well,
right.
sorry
So
to hear
yeah,
that.
yeah, thanks, man. So he had a stroke, and I was at work. My mother called me. It's like, your father had a stroke. He's in the hospital now. So I went there. I'm not really good in dealing with someone I really love who's sick. My grandma died this year as well.
Oh, sorry to hear
Back
that.
yeah, thank you. Anyway, so I went inside the hospital and I was talking to my dad, and I was in there for a very short time because I couldn't be there for a long time because it breaks my heart. I was trying to make jokes. We were making jokes at each other, and I left after 5, 10 minutes. And that was actually the turning point of my life.
Okay.
So I left the hospital and then, going home, I was thinking, because my auntie helped us with the hospital bills, right?
Okay.
So when I was going home, and I'm like, if my auntie, and that's my father's sister, if she didn't help us, there's a good chance that my father wouldn't be able to recover. Worst case scenario, he'd die. So that was a big turning point in my life. And I know sometimes, as a person, I think my advice to anyone as a person, you have to be very self-aware, very self-aware about your limitations,
Right.
very self-aware about your strengths, because you will see your strength as you age. So I knew in my heart that I was pretty good in what I do. Not saying I'm the best, but I have a bit of
Mm-hmm.
knack to it.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to communicate as well. And it's a common thing for us Filipinos to, when we want to help out our family, we fly overseas and you know what I
Right.
mean, try to better living. So that was a turning point in my life, and I decided I got to go to Sydney. And the reason why I came to Sydney is because we have relatives here, and my auntie actually helped me out to send me to uni.
That's good. Now, talking about your career, that you're now in Sydney, you worked as a web developer, and then on the side, you funded your mobile game. Did you feel some sort of regret that I wish I could have continued my gaming career? And although I didn't really continue in the gaming career that I wanted to, I had to stick along to being a web developer and take your career from there.
Very loaded question, but I get what you mean. It always goes back to our roots, our background, and why we do things. Went to Sydney, went to uni, had a job, and my focus was supporting my parents.
Mhm.
And I'm the only child as well. As a Christian, I wouldn't call it a burden. It's actually an opportunity to kind of,
Right.
on the human side, it's also a bit, you could say annoying, you could say frustrating, you could say it's a bit unfair that we're dealt with that kind of card.
Yeah.
But in any case, looking back, because what happened earlier, when I had a full-time job, my full-time job, eventually, like a year or 2 or 3 years, it's actually very easy for me. And I get bored easily. So what happened
Hmm.
is every year, every month, I always have something on the side. So I work as a freelance developer or a freelance designer. And sometimes I'd fund, like using that money, I'd fund the video game that I would create myself or hire people. But yeah, man, looking back, now that you mention it's like that was just a background. There is a little bit of regret, 100%. But again, hindsight is 2020. Hindsight is always perfect. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, especially, interviews, and I'm a fan of fighting, boxing, MMA. So there's this boxing promoter. Every time he's asked about, do you regret this? Do you regret that? He always says, at that point in time, that was the best decision I could make with the data or information that I have around me.
Hmm.
So, and I actually gravitated to that. So now that I'm talking to you and I have this opportunity, at the time, I don't regret it. Obviously, hindsight, we always regret most of our decisions looking back.
I'm glad that you were able to come into that point in your life. So, looking at how your life now, do you still have dreams to pursue being an entrepreneur of a video game company? I know it really sounds big, but I know with your current working path, do you still have that plan to establish that?
I'm not sure if you've seen, I actually had a business 4 years ago with, Diana. So I had
Yes,
a
yes,
business.
Diana.
Yeah. We actually launched a workout clothing activewear, um,
Wow.
well, business 4 years ago. We call it Naya. So like a
Hmm.
play in Diana's name, Naya. So it
Yeah.
lasted for 3 years. We had a good run, and then we had different priorities in life, right?
Hmm.
I did have a business and it had success as well. And again, back to your question, you're like, Kev, why didn't you pursue founding your own game development company? The thing is, because it goes back to the resources available to you. 2017 and 2018, I tried to build my own video game company, right? Hired people. However, I was still the expert
Hmm.
and I was trying to fund it. And the problem with that is if you're only doing it part-time, you won't be able to really dedicate
Right,
your 100%. And
right.
you dedicate all your time, then you won't have the money to invest to it. So after that, like 2019, I thought if I go in a venture again, I need to be the one who'd be able to give the funding, and
Right,
then someone needs to run it. So in
right.
that case, Diana, she was the one who had the idea, and she
Hmm.
basically ran everything like creative,
Marketing.
the marketing, and then securing all the suppliers and all that. When that business ended, it was a very difficult time for me because I love being,
Okay.
you hit a particular part in me when you said, "Do you still dream of becoming an entrepreneur?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man." But 3 years ago, when COVID hit, And because of the failures that I had starting to build something and failed, I always tell myself I don't want to do it anymore. But every year, I always have that itch. I
Mhm.
always want to start something. So yeah, man, the dream is always there. So we will never know.
I'm gonna root for you to really fulfill that dream. So I hope you get the right people and the right time, and I hope things will really fall into your place.
I really appreciate that, Earl. And I just want to say I think we were close for the first year
Right.
in college. And again, hindsight, wish that if I was this mature, it would have been better if we were a lot closer, stuff like that. But we reconnected now, so things are funny sometimes. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
somehow you reunited to people that are unlikely to reunite. So I really appreciate you reaching out. As you know, I have a bit of an attitude, right?
Yeah, yes, yes.
But I'm not gonna lie, when you said dreaming about an entrepreneur or whatever dreams I have, I'm not Elon Musk or I'm not Mark Zuckerberg or all those very popular tech people, but I've always wanted to share my story to everyone. I just want everyone to succeed. I mean, competition is good, but it's all about uplifting each other and
Right.
journeys that we take and the decisions that we make. Anyway, your turn. Sorry.
It's all right. So let's talk about your career path in hindsight. From your experience in the Philippines and in Sydney, what are some of your most memorable challenges that you were able to overcome?
The first challenge, which is pretty typical, is being homesick. All right.
All right.
Arrived here back in 2015, August, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
then 3 months in, I was already crying to my mother and I said, I just want to go home. I just want to get out of here. And this is actually a very good piece of advice, Earl. And she told wherever you are in the world, you were in the Philippines, you
Right.
complained a lot. There's not a lot of opportunities. Public transport sucks. You know,
Right.
I can't say because I'm Filipino, but there's just too many Filipino. I'm
Right.
just saying.
Right. Right.
It's very crowded. And my mom was like, you were complaining when you were here. Now that you're there in Australia, in Sydney particularly, you're complaining as well. A very good piece of advice from my mother is wherever you are, you'll always have problems. You'll always have challenges. So I guess the lesson in general is just be thankful and cherish the moments that you have with people that supported you at that time of your life. That actually sort of floated me through for that first year. So 2015, 2016. And
Mm-hmm.
then I got a job offer at Deloitte. So transitioned my student visa to work visa.
Mm-hmm.
And us Filipinos, we're kind of shy, right? Like we're a bit in the minority, and being in Sydney, we're trying to fit in and we can't really fit in, you know what I mean? Especially if you haven't been here for a long time.
Right.
So I
Right.
was very shy in the beginning. My first full-time job in Deloitte, Australia, very shy, and I don't want to get fired because my visa will get canceled and I need to go home. You know
Right.
what I mean? And there's a sense of pride because you were also an achiever when we were in college, right? Right? Like
Right.
I was a bit of an achiever too, and I think it's actually a detriment if you're an
Yeah.
achiever. I personally think, and we'll talk about that if you have time later. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Sure.
my boss, he was really short-tempered. So he'd get angry and he would let it out at me and I would still do the job. But in the span of 2 years, or maybe a year and a half, I actually had two panic attacks.
Oh.
Yeah, two panic attacks, man. It was so bad because I remember I thought it was a heart attack. I actually called the ambulance twice. I'm not sure if it was the second panic attack or the first one, but I remember I was at work and I had a panic attack. I went to the bathroom, one of those, cubicles, sitting there, and I was telling God, "Is this it for me?" Like, what a funny way to go, you know what I mean? Like, I can laugh at it now, but that was so serious. And all I can think about is, man, like all my savings are here in Australia. How am I going to send it to my parents if I die or whatever? But anyway, those are the challenges that I overcame. Looking back, yeah, especially with us Filipinos or shy people, we should value ourselves. You know what I mean? I'm not
Right.
saying becoming entitled, but you should know that you're a human being. You got people who loves you. And even if you fail, you're going to be fine. Because
Right.
if you believe in God or you believe in some, I don't know, universe or whatever your religion is, from what I've experienced and probably from what you've experienced, it's gonna work out. It's just gonna work out somehow For
Right,
some
right,
reason, it's just gonna work out. So
right.
it was a great challenge, but for me, it was mostly maturity challenges and social challenges at work. In terms of technical stuff, you probably heard it from everybody. I saw this project, I did this, and so I'm not going to
Yeah.
talk about it. But I'd say those two.
Actually, it takes a lot of effort to really know how to stand on your ground and also not forget to take care of yourself. I
Yeah.
know the concept of self-love is there, but I think the most important factor is when you learn how to love yourself, I think you should know the factor of what it means to really take care of yourself. Because if you know how to take care of yourself, that's where the embodiment of what really loving yourself is.
Speaking of being, like I told you, my boss was very short-tempered. I am very short-tempered too. Right? I think you laugh, so you know that already, but very short-tempered too. And this is going to lead into something very personal.
Right.
I did share it in Facebook, but since I was young, like elementary or high school, I easily get angry and throughout college or uni here in Sydney, that's what I call it. And when I was doing my master's degree and when I was at work, I always angry. There are actually times where I quit a job because I think the other guy is just stupid. You know what I mean? Or, but I
Yeah.
just think he's wrong. All right.
Okay.
And I couldn't stop myself, so I quit. And then I figure out I actually got diagnosed 3 years ago with sleep apnea. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so sleep apnea, Earl, is where you stop breathing in short period of time during your sleep. And you could stop breathing for like 30 seconds to 1 minute. And that could happen multiple times in an hour. So what happens is your oxygen level plummets because the ideal oxygen for us is like 95% and above. Mine plummeted to 60%. So you're basically
Oh,
depriving your brain with oxygen.
oxygen, right.
And then it made sense. Like for 10 freaking years, it made sense why I was so angry because I just didn't have enough sleep. And it's such,
Okay.
Earl, this will be good to your viewers as well, that sleep apnea is a silent killer disease. And the first sort of symptom is snoring, actually. And I mean,
Mm.
not all snorers have sleep apnea, but there's a good chance. And especially after a long night of sleep, you still feel tired during the day. So I got diagnosed. I'm wearing my CPAP machine now. I'm trying to lose weight so I can lose a bit of fat under my
Okay.
neck and actually breathe a little bit easier. And
Okay.
my dad got diagnosed too. And a friend of mine here in Sydney a couple of weeks ago, I actually helped him with his sleep apnea as well, because he didn't know for years that he had sleep apnea. But when we were sharing a room, because we were vacationing in Cebu, I noticed that he sort of stopped breathing during his sleep. So I'm like, you should get checked. And yeah, he's got sleep apnea. So yeah, so in terms of challenges, this is the challenge that I have at the moment for years now, the health side of things. So to your viewers and to yourself, and obviously to me, when we were young, we were always told health is wealth. Man, it couldn't be more true. Health, such a challenge, getting healthy.
How are you going by with your recovery of sleep apnea right now?
I'm gonna try to make it in a good vibe sort of conversation. So for 2 years, I lived in Cebu, 2021 to 2022, post-COVID. I was actually in Melbourne. So 2023, I was 85 kilos, and my ideal weight was 70 kilos, 75.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's a huge leap, right? So I was 85. I was already wearing my CPAP machine, and I lost 7 kilos, 2023, last
that's
year.
good.
Yeah, that's the kind of sad, kind of frustrating too. So I lost 7 kilos, and then I went to the Philippines for a vacation last year around November, and Earl, I gained all of it back.
Oh my.
And I was 82 early this year, and then it started getting stressful and busy at work. And I went up to, I'd say 86, man. So 86 like 3 months ago, and now I'm back to 83. And then I actually downloaded an app to kind of keep track of my habits. So I try to exercise at least 30 minutes a day to an hour. I've done what, 20 days now? Not like straight 20 days, like I skip days sometimes, but getting there. So it's such a journey. And until you actually experience the difficulties of being unhealthy, doing it on a daily basis is such an important thing.
I hope you can build that consistency over it. And we're not getting any younger, so of course.
Yeah, 100%. And you just wasted my time, or I was gonna go for a run. And now I have this I have this interview and I talk too much as well. So nah, I'm just kidding, man. I was I'm not gonna use it as an excuse. I'm gonna exercise a bit later.
I've been missing you that from time to time. And I would say it's also on my personal maturity that has really traversed along the way because back then in uni, I thought I was really open, but little did I realize that I was actually close-minded. I think the effect it was I've been living under a bubble and I really have my ideal world. So if I look back in hindsight, there are really some flaws along the way, but there were actually really good things. It has been on different maturity levels that we had personally, but we just reunited and we just look back. We can just really laugh it off and experience the good sides of each other.
No, I totally get you, man, because looking back, I could say, especially with what we've experienced, what you've experienced, right? What I've experienced, you were
Yes.
saying you were in a bubble and you said you thought you were open, but now
Yep.
years later, you're like, oh, I could have been more open. I remember, I will never forget this, Earl. And I'm not sure if you've forgotten, but I'm not sure if do you remember Sister EY?
Yes,
So,
yes.
I'm not sure if it was in her class, but I remember that there was a quiz and I copied your answers.
I get that
And
all the time, actually.
yeah, no, I copied your answers and you were so angry because your score was 9 out of 10 and mine was 10 out of 10.
Yes, yes. I do really remember that.
So what I'm saying is in that way you were in a bubble because those types of things, I know they're, obviously not a good practice, but they build friendships and stuff like that. You know what I mean? However, having said that, I'm not saying like, Earl, you're this and that, you should have loosened up. In the same manner, for me as well, I was also in my own bubble. You know what I mean?
Mm, mm.
Because what I'm trying to say is you could also make the argument that I shouldn't have cheated. Like I should have been more accommodating to other beliefs or perspective and how to approach life. In any case, probably not the right term, but it's funny how humans are just so dumb. Like we
Yeah, I get you. I get you.
like what I'm saying is like our parents have experienced these type of things and they shared it to us and we still repeat most of it,
Yeah.
And then if we have offsprings in the future, they might repeat some of it. And that's probably why evolution takes centuries to, make
Right,
such
right.
big progress or something like that.
So I think for our listeners, I'm pretty sure you really had one moment there in uni. If you're really that outgoing person, I personally think of it, being outgoing, that's also one big factor because that's something that you can be proud of. Because for once in your life, you've experienced that kind without being too plain on yourself. Otherwise, I mean, I get that point, but then there are also really other side effects that, okay, that's a no-no. Okay, offspring should watch
Yeah.
it. So technically, that one. So, yeah,
Yeah.
so,
And that's actually why I try to balance it in college, Earl, because when I was in elementary, I was a high achiever. I was a valedictorian. And I realized that it's detrimental in terms of with good intentions, but parents, instead of letting you like loosen up or play with your friends, or you got
yeah,
to study, you got to do this and stuff like that. And I'm like, why am I being sort of punished while, you know what I mean? So
right, right.
what I what I did in high school is I rebelled. Like I stopped studying, still had like good grades, but not great grades, you know what I mean? And then I realized when I went to college, I'm like, if I don't do this the right way, or at least strike a good balance, it would mess things up for me really bad. And this is actually credit to you as well, Earl. You might not know it, but you were actually the first person that I approached and try to make friends with you the first day in USC. You were the first guy
Yes.
that I approached because in my head I'm like, I'm gonna have to hang out with people that looked like, again, sorry for stereotyping, but you're wearing the glasses, man, and you looked, like I mean, I'm a geek too, and you probably categorize yourself in that area like a geek and a nerd, right? So this guy, I'm pretty sure this guy doesn't, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm gonna hang with this guy. And then we formed that group. And you could say that most of us actually finished. And yeah, it was a good run.
It was really a good one. And I think the good thing about us is because even with our group of friends, we were actually good influencers.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back now. What advice would you want to give to those who are aspiring to be part of the IT industry, whether if it's video gaming or whether if it's just software development, any part of the IT industry that encompasses that umbrella?
If you're just getting into or studying computer science or information technology or anything related to that, or if you're in the industry, or if you're making a career change, it goes back to what I said in the beginning. And again, I feel like I've been talking too much, but you should be self-aware as much as
Right.
possible. Yeah, be very self-aware and do not be afraid of taking risk, right?
Right.
Especially when you're young. So when you're young, you don't have a lot of, I'm not saying, you don't have responsibilities. I mean, you got to go to school and get good grades and not steal money from your parents. But what I'm saying is you gotta, when you're younger, you can risk a little bit more than when you're trying to settle down at a family or past 30 or 40. And I'm not saying if you're past 30, you can't do anything anymore, but
Right.
try to be a risk taker. Because taking risk, if you fail, that's actually how you grow, you know?
Right.
Like, bro, my first job, I left that job in a, I didn't even inform them. I went AWOL. So, no, seriously, I
Yeah,
went
I mean,
AWOL.
like,
I was
yeah.
just, see you later, because I'm kind of a rebel. But doing that, that was a big lesson for me because I was very scared that I might get reported. HR will be talking to each other and I can't
Uh-huh,
get a job
uh-huh.
anymore. So taking risk, you learn a lot in taking risk. So my general advice is just take the risk. It actually counters each other because I'm like, be self-aware and be a risk taker. So like, say if you're changing your career, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna be a developer. Like, oh no, like I'm actually very stupid with computer. Like I don't know how to use a computer. So I'm self-aware, all right. So I'm not gonna go into IT, but at the same time, I said, be a risk taker.
Right, right. I
So
get you.
those two things, strike a good balance and you'll be all right. And goes back to what I said about being self-aware and being a risk taker. Like, do not be afraid to switch. Like, say, for example, if you're a mobile developer and you want to jump into game development, or you're a game developer and you want to jump into being a web developer, don't be afraid. I remember I had this friend and he was like, I'm a web developer now and I want to jump into mobile development, but my boss would shut it down. And I'm like, take a different angle. Try to build your own app, like a personal app, show him. So I gave him that advice and then he showed his boss and he was transferred into a mobile development team. So basically do you, and even if it's a different field in IT that you say, for example, if you're in networking and you go into programming, that's actually a competitive advantage for you because you know a bit of this. And I'm sure some principles you can apply into programming, or if you're a
Right,
game developer, you can apply the animations and all that stuff into web development. Take
right,
this as an example. I was at Deloitte for 8 years and I was in a digital marketing team. I thought that was the end of me. Like I wasn't in a tech team. We didn't do any sprints. There's no unit test. There's no code review. I was just in a very small development team inside a digital marketing team. But now I'm the head of engineering at McGraw. They actually like the fact that I have experience in digital marketing. So I
mm,
sort of package where I know my tech stuff, but I also know marketing. So it's such a unique sort of blend. So again, your experience will always pay off. It will always pay off. And somehow, like I said, in the beginning of this interview, for some reason, if you believe in God or the universe, if you're a Christian or whatever, somehow it works out. It'll just work
yes,
itself.
yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Very well said, Kevin. So, how is Christmas going to be for you, and what are the things that you're looking forward in 2025?
I'm actually going to Cebu a couple of weeks.
Nice.
So spending Christmas with family. Hopefully we can catch up, man. I'll try to make time, unless you don't want to see me. But I'll try to make
No, I mean,
time.
I really want to see you, man.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll try to make time. And what I've noticed is I've read from 7 years ago. I was browsing Reddit. Do you use
Mhm.
Reddit?
Not really.
Not really. So I've been using Reddit and I've been scrolling, right? I saw this random guy. He said, the thing that we don't notice is when we grow older, like you and me, before we were like 25 or 22, and then now what, we're 33 or 34 or whatever, early 30s. You don't notice sometimes, or for the most part, you don't notice that your parents are also growing older.
Right.
And that hit me, Earl. That really hit me hard. And I will never forget that. And that's why, even though it's very expensive going home, my parents are in their late 60s now. And because I'm an only child, they are my best friends. So, as much as possible, I want to see them. And for the past 10 years, I've been, or a good 8 years, I didn't have a balance, Earl.
Mm.
Like I worked. And without that balance, that's actually why I gained all the weight and my sleep apnea had gotten worse. What I'm looking forward to in 2025, like people would say, I want to be a manager, I want to be a CTO, especially in our field or head of engineering or whatever. I want to make more money. I want to improve everything that actually matters in life. And when I say that, improve my relationships with my friends and my family, improve my relationship with myself, and try to take care of how I live my life or what I eat, which is very difficult, especially being a Cebuano and all our food is just, it's just so
Yes.
difficult, man. But yeah, I'm looking forward to 2025, just, trying to self-improve. Because again, it goes back from a career perspective. Third time I've said it, it will just work itself out. If you just keep going, it will work itself out. You know why? Because it had worked itself out for other people. If you look back to the people before us, who's been, very successful now, or I mean, success has different meanings for different people, right? But what I'm saying is, if it worked out for, let's say, 98% of people around the world, why wouldn't it work out for you? So, yeah, just be positive and it will work itself out.
It's actually easy to say but hard to do, but imbibing that positivity is actually very optimal for your health, not just physical health, but actually holistic health. So, seeing the good perspective of things is really everything. So, thank you for that, Kevin.
Just to add, if you believe in something, it's weird because for the past few years, I've been a little bit distant with my relationship with the
Mhm.
Lord. And, it's been really tough going back to where I was before. But what I'm trying to say is, if you believe in something, or let's say you're Christian, you believe in God, it's actually very, very helpful. Because right now, I'm still trying to rebuild that. But if you have a good relationship with the Lord, or with respect to all our audience, if you have that one constant, whatever that is, that faith, if you have that faith, it would actually be super easy for you. I mean, not easy, easy, but you'd have hope because you're like, I will work itself out. But yeah.
Very well said. So, just before you wrap up, Kevin, what wakes you up early in the morning?
Earl, you know the answer. Coffee, Earl. It's coffee. Coffee wakes
Woohoo!
us up in the morning.
Woohoo!
All
Coffee.
right. You drink coffee, Earl?
Whenever there's coffee, I do.
Whenever there's coffee. I'm an addict, man. It doesn't help with my sleep issues, but yeah, you know what I mean? Like I've got sleep issues and I'm addicted to coffee. It's just a vicious cycle. But no, in a serious note, what wakes me up is the fact that I think I can contribute something good to the world in general. I know it sounds uh
Cliche.
yeah, at the same time, I think all of us should think that way. Again, what wakes me up in the morning is my purpose, like our purpose for each of us. And I think we should be proud of that because we say, oh, I only have this job, or I only have that job, or I don't even have a job, or I just work on a daily basis and I get paid on a daily basis. But no, man, somehow you have a purpose. You actually impact the people around you.
Right.
And in everything you do, and you make mistakes and you do good things as well. And hopefully you outweigh the bad with the good.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, what wakes me up in the morning is the purpose, man. Whatever that is for me, my purpose, and for you and for whoever is watching this interview. But yeah.
Those are good stuff, Kevin. Purpose really is everything. And I think at some point we need to be agents of change of the things around us. So if you know your purpose, that's going to be really a key factor, right? So thank you
Yeah.
very much for that, Kevin, for your time. And I really wish you well in your future endeavors in the tech industry.
Earl, this is actually my first interview in a podcast. So, no, seriously. And I was very worried and I almost canceled. Like, what if I say something weird? But I really appreciate it, man. And what you're doing is good stuff. I just keep doing your thing. All right.
Yeah, and you do keep your good thing as well. So once again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Earl.